So what is your normal hemoglobin? Like what is it today?
Low. Well, that's a good question. Yeah. Since we live in Aspen now, I'm sure it's probably 45 or 46. But if I lived here in Austin, it would be in the low 40s.
And so do you remember when you started doing EPO in 95? Presumably they gave you enough EPO to bring your hematocrit up to 50, I would guess, is where they kind of wanted you.
Well, 50 was not.
I know that there was no ceiling,
right.
But did they have concern about blood clotting and things like that?
Not at 50, and maybe not even at 60. There are people on Everest that better than me that have a hematocrit of 70.
They were pushing your crit back in 95?
Not specific. I mean, not that. It was. The answer is no, but I mean, I would remember if it had been 60, or sort of the stories you hear from some folks. But and also just enough is enough, right? At some point, you're competitive. You're at the front of the. You need to do more.
All right, guys. So that was Lance Armstrong and Peter Attia. They're talking about hematocrit and Lance's hematocrit. And, some very interesting points that he brings up there. For anyone who doesn't know what hematocrit is, it's the percentage of your blood cells in your blood. So how much of your actual blood volume is comprised of red blood cells. So we know that blood is comprised of red blood cells, white blood cells, a very small percentage, and then plasma, which is essentially among some different kinds of proteins and everything else that's contained in there. It's essentially water. So usually a healthy hematocrit would be anywhere between 40 and 50, 52, 54, I think maybe is like the upper limit of the range that we see here. And this is talking about men. For females, it's a little bit lower. Now, I find it fascinating that, Lance talking there about his natural hematocrit and then whether or not 50 was kind of where they raised their hematocrit to. And also very, very fascinating that he never kind of really knew exactly how high he was going. Whether or not he did, I'm not, I would have hoped, or I would have thought that he would know how high his hematocrit was being pushed, but it goes to show the trust that they put in the doctors and the expertise and the guidance that they do have. So as well, when Lance is talking about hematocrit, he touches on the fact that 50 really wasn't an issue for the cyclist. People go up to 60 or have, and then, high altitude climbers and Everest climbers and whatnot, of people that live at very high altitudes can get up to 70% hematocrit. Why is that important? Why is it important in endurance sports? Well, your red blood cells carry oxygen. More oxygen around the body, faster you're going to go, basically. So, absolutely fascinating. And I guess, we have this not a misconception, but there's this kind of general conception, right? That if you go over 50, if you go over 55, you're getting a little bit high in your hematocrit. Your increased potential for thrombosis or blood clots is much higher. And there's definitely that association or that correlation between hematocrit, or at least an association, let's say, between higher hematocrits and blood clots. But like anything, this just goes to show, as Lane said, everything as he was alluding to, everything in medicine is individual, and we can have one person who might have a hematocrit of 60, and that could be perfectly fine for them. For another person, if they had a hematocrit of 50 or even 55, then that could be very dangerous. So what comes into this? Well, obviously, cardiovascular fitness. The more fit you are, the more your blood can kind of move around the body, obviously, is going to help to reduce your risk. It's also going to increase the health of your endothelium, which is the lining of your blood vessels. And so endothelial health is a major risk factor in whether or not you will be susceptible to blood clots. Platelets and how they aggregate, there's many, many factors surrounding that. So you may have individual genetic risk factors. You may have kind of lifestyle-induced factors there too. This is why some people with higher hematocrits take a low-dose aspirin, because it reduces the platelets' kind of innate ability to form blood clots. And then also your body's ability to produce nitric acid and modulate your nitric acid production, because that can help to dilate the blood vessels and increase blood flow and help the general blood flow as well. So, touching on that as well, when we think about endurance sports and the impact of diet, remember that if we eat a very, very high fat meal, that's going to create lipids to enter the bloodstream. It's going to increase literally increase the stickiness of the blood. And so it just goes to show that, if you are one of these high level athletes, then eating a low fat diet would obviously be very, very important. And yeah, like anything, medicine's individual. Who knows how high Lance's hematocrit really was, but let's just enjoy the phenomenon that is Lance.